Hello and good evening. My name is Ankit Sharma. I'm a PhD scholar at Gujarat University. I'm doing research on non-performing assets in the banking sector in India. And this is an interdisciplinary research between finance and economics. So it combines the disciplines of both of these fields. And I'm going to be a faculty today for this demo session, which would be a 30-minute demo session. And this is supposed to show you or to give you a little perspective of how the 1 hour tutorial sessions would be conducted at College Dekho, and how detailed these explanations would be, how detailed these sessions would be. So, out of all of these different subjects that are available at College Dekho, today we'll be studying economics, the very basic economics, and in economics we'll be looking at microeconomics. Uh, right, and in microeconomics, the topic that we'll be looking at today, that we'll be learning today, is the supply analysis. All right, so let us begin with our demo session. Hmm. So first of all, in the supply analysis, in this entire topic, in this entire session, we'll be looking at these three different types of concepts, these three different topics, which is meaning and concept of supply. We will be looking at what supply basically means, and then we'll be going over to law of supply, just like the law of demand that we uh, studied previously. Then we'll be looking at the elasticity of supply, which tells you, or which shows you how to measure the supply and how to put it in a graph, right? How to plot these different changes in supply in the graph of a company, in the supply graph of a company, and then how to make the supply curve for a company, right? Now, please understand that in one of the previous sessions, if you have been logging on to College Deco earlier on, we talked about the demand analysis, right? So many of these topics, many of these subtopics, particularly the law of supply or the elasticity of supply, since these are very much similar to the demand of a certain product, right? But in some places, it is the complete opposite. All right. So if your concepts for demand analysis are already clear, then it would not be very hard for you to understand the supply analysis as well. All right. Now, regardless of whether your concepts earlier are clear or not, we'll be looking at supply analysis from the very core, all right, from the very basics of each of these topics, all right. But another thing that you have to keep in mind is that since this is a demo session, we will not be going into too much details about these topics. We'll not be going too much into the topic of supply analysis, but nevertheless, we'll be looking briefly at all of these concepts, and we'll be understanding what these concepts, what these topics basically mean. All right. So let us begin with the first topic, which is the meaning of supply. So first of all, what is supply? Supply is nothing. It is a term which refers to the quantity of a commodity that the producers are willing to sell at different prices per unit of time. All right. What was demand? Demand is the demand of a commodity that a consumer is willing to buy at a certain price at a certain period of time. All right. Now, in the same way, what is supply? What is supply? Supply is the quantity of a commodity that the producers are willing to sell at a certain price and at a certain period of time. All right. So demand is from the consumer perspective, and supply, on the other hand, is from the producer's perspective. All right. So this was what supply means. It is nothing but the quantity of a commodity that producers are willing to sell at different prices per unit of time. All right. And again, just like demand, the word supply also has some various features that are attached to it, such as there are various features. We'll be looking at a few of them. So first of all, it indicates the quantity that is offered. Quantity that is offered by whom? By the producers. All right. Since this entire supply concept is from the producer's point of view. So supply indicates the quantity that is offered by the producers. All right. Now please note here that whatever the total production of a business is, it is not necessary that out of this total production would also be the total quantity that is offered by the producers. All right. There could be a gap between the total production and the total quantity of products that are offered to sell. All right. Now let us look at the second feature, which says that it represents that the price represents the price at which the commodity is supplied to the consumers by the producers. All right. So just like the demand, supply is also with the reference to the price at which that quantity is supplied by the producers. All right. And if there is no price that is attached to the product, right? If there is no price, if it is free, then it would not carry any economic meaning, right? And if there is no economic meaning, there is no need to understand these demand analysis or this supply analysis, all right? Because we are talking about money as of here, but the money that is attached, the price that is attached to each of these commodities, that is either being demanded or that is either being supplied by the producers. All right. So the price and supply represents the price at which the commodity is supplied by by the suppliers, by the producers to the consumers. All right. Now the next feature is that supply is a flow that is never ending, right? That is why the word flow. All right. It has a time unit attached. All right. The supply has to be either per day or per week or per month. All right, supply is calculated like that, it is represented like that. All right. Now that we have understood the basics of supply, what does it mean, and a few of the features of supply, now let us understand the concept of supply or the determinants of supply. What factors determine the supply for a particular commodity? All right. Now again, many of these factors are also the factors that determines the demand of a commodity. All right. But the demand of the supply, since it is from the consumer's point of view, these determinants that also affect the supply, we'll be looking at these determinants from the suppliers, from the producer's point of view. Okay. Now, first of all, what is the first determinant? It is that it is the price of the commodity supply. Okay, the price is the most immediate determinant of supply. If a person or a firm will make a person or a firm will make quick check whether the cost will be covered by the price or not. If it is a price that is too low, then the cost themselves would not be covered. Or if the cost cover nahi ho rahe, then there would be no break-even point, there would be no profit, and the company will go into loss. All right. So the price decide ho raha hai. Whatever the price that the management is deciding, it not just have to cover the cost of the product, the cost of making that product, but a certain profit margin is also to be attached to that cost. All right. In order to arrive at the final selling price. All right. Now the second factor, the second determinant, which is the prices of factors of production. Now, what are the factors of production? It is the raw material that the company, that the business is using in order to arrive at the final product. All right. This final product, it could either be a good, a physical good, or it could either be a service, all right, which is not physical. So these factors of production, these also could be goods, these could be labor, these could be services provided by them. All right. So whatever the prices of these factors of production of these raw materials are, they also determine the supply in a way that a rise in the prices of these factors of production also this rise may discourage the production and supply of the commodity. So not just the production, but also the supply. Let us understand this with a very relevant example of the past. So last year when COVID hit, earlier this year, in fact, there was a standoff between the Indian Army and China in the Ladakh region of India, right? And because of this, as a result of this, India had banned all the supply of raw materials from China. All right. So if I am a business in India that uses raw materials from China, that is sourced from China, and because of this standoff in Ladakh, now I cannot buy this raw material from China because the government has banned it. All right. And the alternative that is available in the market for this raw material, जो same raw material है, but a little differentiate, a little different raw material in terms of quality or quantity or price. All right. जो ये दूसरा alternative है, वो 2 गुना या 3 गुना prices पे बिक रहा है. Right? Now, this will change the production strategy. This will change the total amount of products that have to be produced, the total, the budget of the business. It will entirely change everything in the business because a raw material is a factor of production, right? Without raw material, there cannot be any production, there cannot be any business if it is a manufacturing business, right? So, cases like these where the prices of factors of production is changing is again a huge determinant of supply of a commodity. All right. Now let us look at the third determinant, which is the prices of other goods. So uh, just like demand, we looked at the demand of other goods, the availability of other goods, such as the um, supplementary goods or the complementary goods. So in the same way, in supply, the prices of other goods also determines the supply of a commodity in a way that commodities, these commodities, they become more attractive to produce for profit maximizing firm if the prices of other commodities rise. All right. If there is a product whose price is rising, and if I am a business who is a competitor of this business, of this other business, and if I know that they are increasing their price, so if I improve my product in a certain way, अगर मैं उसमें कुछ क्वालिटी उसकी ठीक कर दूं या कुछ अपना प्राइस थोड़ा बहुत ऊपर नीचे कर दूं या इवन अपना प्राइस सेम भी रखूं, है ना? सेम रखने से भी क्या होगा दैट कंज्यूमर हु इज अ मिडिल क्लास, लेट अस से हु इज अ मिडिल क्लास इनकम पर्सन, और अगर दूसरी कमोडिटी का प्राइस बढ़ रहा है तो ही और शी मे नॉट बी एबल टू अफोर्ड दैट प्रोडक्ट नाउ. एंड इफ आई नो दैट दिस इज द केस, then I may increase the production of my product. I may increase the supply of my product to make the consumer realize that my product is also an alternative to the other product. And now, in this case, I will be taking benefit of the rise in price of that other commodity. All right. So this again is a determinant of supply. Then the next one is the state of technology that exists in the economy or in the business. So again, the improvement in these methods of production, they lead ultimately to lower costs of production. How? That we know that technology is ever changing, and because of so much machinery that has been introduced in the economy, in the world, in fact, many of these industries, many of these manufacturing industries, companies, units, they have shifted from labor-intensive manufacturing units to technology incentive or to industrial equipment intensive units. As in, जहाँ पे पहले 100 लोग काम करते थे, 100 लेबर काम करते थे, वही 100 लोगों का काम आज के दिन पे 5 मशीन कर रही है या 10 मशीन कर रही है. Right? So this improvement in the technology, it lowers the cost of production. पहले मुझे 100 लोगों का सैलरी देनी पड़ती थी, wages देनी पड़ती थी, but now इस business को they'll just have to repair these machines whenever they have gone bad or they have to उनकी सर्विस करवानी पड़ेगी, right? So this change in the cost of production has ultimately declined because of improvement in the technology in the economy or in the business. All right. Now, the last determinant, which is the goal of the producer, it is the objective with which the producer undertakes production, and it also influences his production and supply decisions. Right? The goal with which this production, first of all, is happening. If the goal is कि मुझे सिर्फ प्रोड्यूस करते जाना है, सिर्फ बहुत सारी कमोडिटीज मार्केट में डाल देनी है, राइट? और इफ द गोल इज कि नहीं, मैं कुछ की कमोडिटीज बनाऊंगा लेकिन हर एक की क्वालिटी बहुत अच्छी होगी, है ना, हर एक, और उसकी क्वांटिटी भी कम ही सप्लाई करूंगा मैं, राइट? सो दीज डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ गोल्स ऑफ द प्रोड्यूसर, what the commodity is that is being produced, what is the market, where is the market, where is this market situated in India, which sector is this, what sector does this commodity belong to, right? All of these different decisions, all of these different goals of the producer also determine the supply of a commodity. All right. So until now, we have understood what supply means. We have understood various determinants of supply. Now let us look at the law of supply. All right. So the law of supply basically, let us look at the definition first. It basically states that keeping other factors constant, there is a direct relationship between the price, I'm sorry, there is a direct relationship between the price and the commodity and the quantity of a commodity supplied. All right. Uh, let us understand this in detail. So it says that keeping other factors constant. What are these other factors? Let us go back. So these are the various factors. There could be many more as well. Again, please note this. There could be many other factors, but let us look at briefly the categories of these factors, right? So the price of the commodity itself, or the prices of the raw materials, the prices of other goods, complementary or supplementary, this technology, change in goals of the producer. So keeping all of these last four factors as constant, that there is no change in these four factors, the last four, right? So it states that keeping other factors constant, there is a direct relationship between the price and the quantity of a commodity supplied. Now, what does this direct relationship mean? That if there is an increase in the price, the quantity would also increase, the quantity that is being supplied by the producer. And on the other hand, if the price of a commodity is decreasing, then the quantity that is supplied of a commodity would also decrease. Right? Now, what is the logic behind this? So if the price is decreasing, right, the supplier would supply less of this commodity, right? And why he would do so? Why he or she would do so? Because if there is a shortage in the market, the consumers will demand this product more and more, right? This shortage would ultimately uh, help the producer in this shortage will ultimately come to a level where the prices of the commodity have again reached to a certain level, have again arisen, right? There is a rise in the prices again because there is a shortage of commodity. All right, so there is a direct relationship between the price and the quantity of a commodity supplied, but given that the other factors remain constant. All right. Hmm. So this is very basic formula to know the profit of a business, which is TR minus TC. What is TR? TR is the total revenue of the company, right? And TC is the total cost of the company. All right, whatever cost that the company has incurred, whether it has come from these raw materials, procurement of raw materials or services, any type of cost. And all of these costs are deducted from the total revenue that has generated from the sale of goods or from the sale of services. All right, and whatever the difference is, whatever the resulting amount is the profit of a business. Now, any business would want to increase their profit, right? And if the price of a commodity is high, right? If it is being sold, if it is being supplied at a higher price, then a higher price would mean would ultimately mean more profits for the company, right? And the if the profits are more, the producer will supply more at higher price. If the goal is to earn more profits, then the supplier would ultimately supply at higher prices as well. Now, similarly, a producer will supply smaller quantity at a lower price. Why? Because as we understood that if the price is down, then the quantity that is supplied would also be low in order to create a shortage and in order to make this consumer realize that there is a shortage of this product, and then the demand again will increase, and if the demand is increasing, the prices will again rise. All right. So this was to show you that there is a direct relationship that exists between the price of a commodity and the quantity that is being supplied of that commodity. All right. Until now, we have looked at the meaning of supply, the determinants of supply, and the law of supply. All right. Now let us look at the elasticity of supply. All right. First of all, there could be these uh, five different cases of elasticity of supply. These are the same cases uh, here and there which existed in the elasticity of demand, but regardless, we'll be looking at these cases right from the basics, right from the beginning. So first of all, it says that a supply curve with zero elasticity is a vertical straight line. What is vertical straight line? On the graph, a vertical straight line is a line that is parallel to the x-axis. Right? What is horizontal? That is parallel to the y-axis. All right. So a supply curve with zero elasticity is a vertical straight line, just like the perfectly inelastic horizontal demand curve. All right. Why? Because there is the relationship that exists between the price of the commodity and supply of the commodity is inelastic, as in there is no change. There is no change when the price is increasing or decreasing. There is no such change uh, in the supply of commodity, in the number of units that are being supplied of that commodity. All right, and the second case, which is a straight line supply curve passing through the origin, will have unitary elasticity to it. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. This vertical is the uh, when the demand curve or when the supply curve is parallel with the y-axis and not the x-axis. All right, please note this point. Now, second case, a straight line supply curve passing through the origin will have unitary elasticity throughout. As in, if let us say that here is the graph, that this is the y-axis, this is the x-axis. So if the curve is passing right through the origin and going equally at equal distance from the y-axis and from the x-axis, then the elasticity that exists is unitary, as in 1 unit of change in price will result in 1 unit of change in supply. All right, it is completely direct relationship that exists in this case. All right, it is completely unity. If this is the case, then the line that is the demand supply curve that is passing through the origin, It will be unitary, as in this elasticity of supply will be equal to 1. All right, and by 1, just like we understood, that 1 unit of change in price will result in 1 unit of change in the supply of this commodity. All right. Now the third case, which is that a straight line supply curve running parallel to the quantity axis will have infinite elasticity. This too is similar to that of the demand curve. So just like this is just like we talked about that these cases between demand curve and between the demand and the supply of a commodity are very much similar in the basics, right? So here also this was the same case as that of demand curve. Here also it is the same case as that of demand curve. So these topics are very much interrelated. So even now, if you understand these topics about supply properly, then you would be able to understand the basics related to demand properly as well. All right. Then the second last case, which is a straight line supply curve that intersects price axis will have elasticity greater than 1 at all points in the first quadrant. So say we know that the uh, price axis is shown on the y-axis, right? And quantity is on the x-axis. So a straight line curve that intersects price axis, the y-axis, will have elasticity greater than 1 at all points in the first quadrant. All of these points will be clear to you when we look at the graph of the elasticity of supply, when we look at the supply curve, which will come in a little while. Then a straight line demand curve that intersects quantity axis, the x-axis, in the first quadrant has elasticity less than 1. What does this mean? That the relationship, what does these cases mean? That the elasticity would be greater than 1 or the elasticity would be less than 1. So it basically means that the relationship that exists between the price of a commodity and the supply that is there, the supply of the commodity that is there, they do not share an exact direct relationship, as in 1 unit of change in price will not bring 1 unit of change in the supply of the commodity. All right, 1 unit of change in price would either bring more than 1 unit of change or less than 1 unit of change. And according to what these changes are, according to whatever relation that exists between the price of the commodity and the quantity supplied of the commodity, the elasticity of supply would either be greater than 1 or it would either be less than 1. All right. So this relationship between the price and the quantity ultimately decides whether the elasticity would be equal to 1, whether it would be more than 1, whether it would be less than 1, whether it would be completely inelastic, all right, and whether it would be infinitely elastic. Right? So these are a few cases that defines the elasticity of supply. Now, let us look at the graph or the supply curve of a particular commodity that exists in a business. Right? So this is the y-axis, which shows the price of a commodity. This is the x-axis, which shows the quantity of a commodity, and then this is the supply curve. All right. We know, or if you don't know, then you should know that the demand curve for a commodity is always downward facing. All right, it is always downward facing, and the supply curve of a commodity is always upward facing. All right. So in this case, the supply curve of a commodity is intersecting the price axis in the first quadrant. Right. This is the first quadrant. So it is intersecting the price axis in the first quadrant. Let us go back to the case. So it is this case, second last, which is a straight line supply curve that intersects price axis will have elasticity greater than 1 at all points in the first quadrant, right? So in all of these cases, in all of these points, whether it is here or here or here or here or here, in all of these cases, the price elasticity of this commodity would always be more than one, just in this first quadrant. What does this mean that it would be more than one? That one unit of change in the price, right? One unit of change in the price would bring more than one unit of change in the quantity that is supplied of the commodity. All right. So this was just an example to show you how the supply curve is made and the different cases of the elasticity of supply. And in this topic, we looked at the very basics of supply analysis. I tried to make you understand the very foundation of supply analysis, the meaning of supply, the law of supply, determinants of supply. And towards the end, we looked briefly at the elasticity of supply. We did not go into detail. Now, again, since this was a demo session, we could only talk about these limited topics and in a limited explanation period. So I hope this gave you a perspective into how these sessions would be conducted at College Dekho and in how much detail would we be going into these classes. All right, so this was it for this demo session. I hope to see you next time in one of these 1 hour sessions, which are our regular tutorial classes. And this was it for this session. I hope you had a good learning and thank you so much for logging in.